I'm going to take a moment to answer a question that Nancy had, and she asked if I could do a video sharing about contentment. And I had to think long and hard about what I wanted to say about contentment. Since we're doing all of these things to our home, do I find myself less content? Am I thinking that, oh, I want to get this done and this done? No, not at all. In fact, I enjoyed living the way that I lived. I enjoyed the hauling the water out. I enjoyed that life. But the older I got, the harder it was, and it just was very stressful. And it had to be fixed. You know, we live in a world where there are certain rules and expectations. And when I turned my video on all those years ago, I didn't know that hauling water out like that or doing certain things like that would have been considered taboo, or been considered that something you're not allowed to share, or something that is degrading, or something that people would get upset about. I didn't know anything about that. I just was sharing my life. I thought there were lots of people that did what I do. And there are. It's just they don't share it on the internet. And so we decided, you know, are we going to use it for retirement and be older and have retirement money and then not physically be able to do what we're doing? Or do we want to get everything fixed, everything properly done, and that way we have a home that is easy to age with us? Boy, this is really a hard video for me to share exactly how I feel. When you're faced with a certain way of life and there's nothing you can do about that life, you either can fight it, become depressed, or you can see it as a journey and a challenge. When I first was thrown into this lifestyle, we're talking 15 years ago. I have to really think. At first I fought it. I had a lot of pride. I said, are you serious? Me, where I've come from, have to live like this? Things can happen. You can blame people on it. You can blame situations on it, but that doesn't do you any good. Circumstances happen in our lives. I could say, well, it was his fault, her fault, their fault. I could say it's society's fault. It was the economy's fault. It was my fault. But it doesn't really matter where you put the blame. Sometimes in life, things happen. And so when I was thrown into this situation, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know there was different ways of doing things. I thought, well, that's it. This doesn't work. I panicked. And then I remember one really special evening. Our daughter had the internet. I didn't even have the internet when we moved here 13 years ago. And when we moved here 13 years ago, we moved in this property to get out of debt because the property was sold as is. Really, as is. But I didn't know how as is meant. Was it our fault that we didn't check out the plumbing, check out things? Yes, but we probably would have moved here anyhow, to be honest with you. We wanted to liquefy everything that we owned to get out of debt. And at that time, we were over $300,000 in debt. Now, in today's standard, you may say, well, that's not much of anything, but for us, it was a lot. We couldn't handle all of the interest payments on $300,000 debt. And we were not going bankrupt. We were not going to do that. We got ourselves into this situation, whether it was our fault of our own or not, we're getting ourselves out of it. So we lived here, and I got on the internet, and I remember the first video I watched was Idaho Hillbilly. And he showed making a cabin for, I don't know, was it $50? He was using pallets to make his own home. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was alone. Because you must understand, I didn't grow up poor. I didn't grow up with anybody living, even remotely living like I had to. So it was a full new experience for me. I wasn't raised this way. I didn't know how to think outside the box. I didn't know how to do things. And I watched his video and I thought, for the first time, I can do this. And then I watched All American Homestead, and I watched his wife, and I saw that she was showing how she washes dishes without running water. When we first moved into this place, we had running water, but it was only cold running water. And so what happened was, it was cold running water, and we were just using our sink like a normal person would. We didn't know there was no piping under our house. And so after about 8 weeks, I don't even know what made us think that there wasn't something right, but I realized there wasn't something right, and we had somebody come out to look at it. He said, "Ma'am, you have no plumbing under your house." This was 2 days after I had major surgery. And he said, "Ma'am, you don't have any plumbing." And thus began our journey of living an extreme frugal life. And so I realized, okay, how can we do this in a safe manner? So I made videos. I showed you the difference between gray water and black water, and how you can use gray water to water plants, and how you can use gray water to water things, and how you can save on your water bill. You know, people in California do this all the time. In fact, in some states, it's very legal to do that. And I didn't know how people could be on social media. I thought everybody would be accepting of me, and I thought everybody would enjoy it, everybody would learn from it. And 90%, actually I should say this, 97% of people, 98% of people learned a lot from my videos. When we moved into this property, we had nothing left. We weren't in debt, but we had nothing left. And then shortly, well, it was a couple years after that, I started my YouTube channel. But we had nothing, and we built from the ground up. We had to start all over again. We got into debt. It had nothing to do with living a luxurious life. We had a real estate business where we would buy homes. My husband would contract all of the work out, and then we would resell the homes. Well, of course, in 2007, things didn't go very well with the economy, and that's what left us with a lot of business debt. But we paid that off. We are not in any debt now. And so it got to the point where we decided that in the world we live in now, we have to take care of things. We have to get things fixed. I am not going to go into detail about all of that. I'm just going to let it at that and say that it was extremely important that we got our home fixed properly. And I'm very thankful that we were able to do that and able to do some things to our house. And our house is very nice, and we upped the value of our property extremely a lot. And so we still have things we want to work on because we choose to, because we want to. But contentment. Once I realized that I wasn't alone, and I realized that people were like me, not people around me were like me, but people on the internet were like me, I started just absorbing everything. And I learned about homesteading, and I learned about living that very hard life. 1 bucket of water full is over 40 pounds. I handled a lot of water, and it was amazing. I even had people come all around to learn how to do the skills that I was doing. I had people that wanted to know the old-fashioned skills about how the soil can take your water, the gray water, and the soil can actually clean that water. That's how God made it. That's how, in fact, that's how drainage systems work even today. So if you have your own drain field, that drain field is 6 to 8 inches under the ground, and all that water runs under your ground today. And what happens is the soil just neutralizes all of that, and it actually absorbs it, and it makes it new, recycles that water. And I learned so much about teaching people about waste management and things like that. In fact, I've been asked to do teaching locally here about waste management, but I knew I couldn't physically do that anymore. I couldn't physically, it was just getting too much. It was just too much. And wow, I don't know how to act. You know, I don't know how to act. We get a shower and we don't have to work towards anything. We don't have to heat water. We don't have to do all of these things. But contentment is no matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter if you're rich. It doesn't matter if you're poor. Contentment doesn't have any price tag on it. And I think for me, to remain contentment it's a mindset of this isn't a journey. This is a journey in life. I have to learn to be content with YouTube. YouTube is the same thing. It's a journey. There are some times in my YouTube careers where I seem very popular and loved, and people love what I do, and I'm praised, and I'm given, you know, a lot of pats on the back, and, you know, I'm content, of course. And then there's times where people don't seem to like the videos, or people are nitpicking at every little thing I do. I've had bad days, but I have to learn to be content in all of it. So contentment is everything in life. And now I'm back to we're watching our pennies again, because we know we have to save. We're not rich. In any sense of the word, we're not rich. And I have to be content and know, okay, I'd love to have new carpet. Not right now, Tessie. I would love to have all of these different things that are not, they're just cosmetic, you know, new wallpaper, new this, new that. And I'm living, I feel like I'm a queen in my castle with having all of my plumbing fixed. So contentment is in the heart, and contentment is in everything in life. And I learned to be content in YouTube. And one of the hardest things for me to being content was actually YouTube, harder than how I lived or anything like that. Because YouTube, I based my worth on the views of people gave me. And if I didn't get this set amount of views I was used to, then I felt like my worth I wasn't worth as much. And that's just silly, isn't it though? Isn't it so silly? I grew up quite a bit since those days. And it doesn't affect me anymore, doesn't bother me anymore. Yes, there's some videos that I do that I think are so special, and people, please watch it. It's a really good video. And I think, no, you're not watching. You're missing out on a big highlight of my life. Like the plumbing video. I thought for sure that plumbing video would just be the biggest video I've ever made, because it was the biggest impact of my life I ever did. But it didn't go that way. And you wonder why. But it has nothing to do with being discontent and saying, oh, Tessie, what did you do wrong this time? It's just life, you know? That's how life is. And YouTube is getting harder and harder and harder, you know, to post those videos out for people. But I think that when you live in your element and you find such enjoyment in the little things, you can't help but be content. And so as I get older, I realize that I can't do some of the things that my younger self used to do. At least I can't do them as quick as I used to. And I have to realize I'm growing old. I'm growing old with all of these things, and I have to learn to go with that. So contentment is one of those things that we all struggle with on some basis, and everybody has a different thing that bothers them and keeps them from being content. And It's just life's a dance. Life's a dance, you learn as you go. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. Don't worry about what you don't know. Life's a dance, you learn as you go. Life's a dance, you learn as you go. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. Don't worry about what you don't know. Life's a dance, you learn as you go.